Welcome to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast, where we help farmers, ranchers, and business owners create a seamless transition plan for the future. From retirement to ownership transfer, we protect what you've built and guide you every step of the way.
Welcome back to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast. March 27th is National Women in Agriculture Day, a day set aside to recognize the incredible role women play in agriculture. If you've been around farming very long, you know this isn't something new. Women have always been in a driving force in agriculture. Sometimes it's behind the scenes. It might be balancing the books or running other operations on the farm. In my 22 years working with farm and ranch families, I've seen trust and succession planning in many different ways. I've met countless women who are the glue holding everything together. They're the planners, the communicators, the problem solvers, and many times the often quiet leaders who help keep both the farm and family moving forward. Today, I'm excited to highlight one of those stories. Joining me is Erica Lantz, owner of Feeders Grain and Farm Supply. Erica wears many hats. She's a business owner, rancher, and mom. And she stepped into leadership of her own business in a way that took courage, grit, and a lot of determination. Erica, thank you for joining me today and sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, very good. So for listeners who may not know you yet, tell us more about yourself and your operation.
Sure. So about 5 years ago, I actually took over a farm's supply store that ran for over 60 years. So I purchased it from a gentleman into his 80s, actually. So we already have an operation. We have livestock. We were doing business with this owner, and it came the opportunity that he was wanting to get out of it. And I figured at the point in my life that I was in operations for manufacturing. And at that time, I was kind of doing multiple roles. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to do all of these things, why not own something? Why not have that communication with farmers direct and enjoy a business that I've enjoyed as a customer and be able to continue that customer service for our customers in Southwest Iowa?
So really that you've had from your past work experience was a great foundation to start and get your foot in the door with this and give this gentleman a succession plan. I mean, that's our business. Give him a succession plan or something so that he could feel good about when he was retiring. And 80-some years old, what a wealth of knowledge to learn from.
Yes. Yeah. So I didn't have a lot of time with him, but he left a lot of information behind with him, which was nice. The fun thing is being a woman in agriculture and buying the business from an older gentleman. He never thought that he would sell the business to a woman. So, he just said, oh, how times have changed, how things, how things change, how things evolve. And he was very happy with the transition that we made. And he's reached out a few times here and there, but, he's just like, you got this, no problem.
Well, oftentimes I feel that women, and nothing against the guys on that side, but sometimes the compassion and the organization and the learning really comes down to more just general. That's who we are. That's, by nature. Yeah. So it just kind of makes more sense in certain situations for that. Yeah. So was agriculture always a part of your life growing up, or is that that path that unfolded later? Talk about
agriculture has always been part of my life. Just growing up, we did have livestock. We had hogs for a while. Then we've always had horses. And then when I got into, obviously I was in a farming community. I was in a small community that did seed corn. So seed corn was a huge factor. So I spent the summers detasseling and roguing. And then I became a contract foreman. So I did that all through high school, along with working in my mother's restaurant. So I dealt with farmers on a regular basis because that was the majority of our customer base. Getting into college, I decided I wanted to go into the food aspect of it. So I went into food manufacturing. Well, where that ended yes, I was in manufacturing, but I was dealing in popcorn. So we contracted with farmers. I still had that connection with farmers, got to go to annual meetings and speak with them, see them when they came in and brought in the corn. And so I've always had that connection with the farmers. And then I happened to marry a person who is a 5th generation farmer himself. So then once we got married, then we started collecting, as I say a lot of times, our livestock and building our herd.
So it just came natural for you.
Yes.
For the working with the ag community and, being able to talk their language and knowing the seasons and what was taking place and really being able to read what they needed and to best help them with their operation.
And FFA is always a huge thing, 4-H and FFA, right? I did a lot of leadership in FFA through high school. And that's what I always laugh about, how important that is, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have met my husband that I have today. So those opportunities just within that leadership piece and going places, meeting people, it's neat to see how the future of agriculture is molded. You don't think about it when you're in it, but now stepping back many years later and seeing that and how important it is, it's very interesting how that molded my future and where I'm at today.
Establishing those roots, and we don't realize that it's such a big community out there, even states away. I mean, you could meet people from all across the world and, FFA or 4-H, and then later in life, you run into them down the road and it's great connections.
Yeah, which was super, super neat because I am not from the area in which I have my business. I'm from not that much further, right? So about an hour and 45 minutes north is where I'm from. But when I was in FFA, this area that we're in was part of the district. And I was a district officer. So I know quite a few people, even though when we first moved down here, I already knew a lot of the people because I dealt with them in FFA. So that's super neat when people come into the store and I'm like, okay, I should know who you are because I remember, from when I was in high school. So that is very neat. And then going to university, at Iowa State, you see a lot of the same people there as well. Yeah.
Definitely those established connections already, just to have them already in the background. So you just build upon them even more with the business. So what was the moment when you realized that when you took over the business that this is my responsibility now as a business owner? Did you have like a big aha moment? You're like, okay, this is a responsibility on my shoulders now.
I felt like that at the very beginning, right? I'm making this my responsibility in the aspect of I want to continue servicing, Southwest Iowa into Nebraska, into Missouri. So, we have quite a wide span. I want to continue that customer service piece for people and not be that box store, be that person, right? So I am a person that owns. You can see my face, how it exists, right? And that's big for me. And I think it's super important to be able to say, yes, I am responsible for this, but I also want to be helpful in your production and for you to reach your goals. And that's our big thing, like for you to reach your goals your way. I'm not going to be pushy sales like you have to buy this because I totally recommend it. I'm going to say, these are the things that I find that work within our operation. These are the options you have. I think it's a big responsibility, yes, but it's worth it because I get to see people growing their operations, being successful in their homesteads. And that's the most rewarding part of it for me, is to see that aspect of it with people.
Did you have challenges or hurdles that you had to get over when you first came into this role?
Sure. So it's kind of fun when I talk about it and think about like over the last 5 years, right? I tell people it was kind of like cleaning up Grandpa's farm because there was a lot of accumulation. He had the business for over 60 years. So there was just stuff kind of scattered amongst all the properties. and going through and saying, okay, this was something people bought 20 years ago. It's not necessarily something people buy today. And going through that whole process, it takes a lot of time. That I would say was the biggest thing for me, from a hurdle perspective, because you have the things you need, but then you have a lot of extra things. So what does that look like? What do we need to do from an inventory standpoint? Because it's not as though we keep a small amount of inventory. We're a rather large fencing supply store. So there is a lot of selection that way. And you got to have the cash flow availability, right? So just reviewing and going through inventory. I felt like that's all I did for the first 3 years is just you're ordering what you need, but then how do we move the stuff we don't need?
Did you have anyone mentor you during this other than the prior business owner? Did you have anyone else help to guide you through all of this?
My sister was part of a bigger retail chain. And so she would help, just, okay, high level, this is where we're at on things that need to move, things of that sort. But other than that, the CPA that was with the prior owner, I kept him. And so he would give me some insight, which was helpful that way.
Good.
Yeah. So that was great to have somebody that at least knew the history and how it functioned financially to be able to ask questions.
Right. And you knew what seasons you were in as far as the cyclical for the business cycle and where you needed to maybe ramp up inventory more others. I mean, we all know as farmers and ranchers when you're fencing and when you need those supplies, but he had some behind the scenes input that he could give you to help you with the financial side.
And that was super handy. And the other part is that making sure you're paying attention to what is going on. If you have if you're having a drought, you don't want to load up on baling supplies because you're not going to have as much hay cut as what you would if it was a good year with ideal moisture conditions. So there's so many factors involved in it, just like farming, right? So I feel like we run into that on our own farm. You always have to be ready to pivot. You always have to be ready to, okay, if this isn't working, what do we need to do?
So not only being a business owner and economist, but to having to be a meteorologist as well. I mean, we all wear all those hats to say, okay, where are we at and how long is this drought going to last or what's coming through next? Are we getting some storms?
Yeah, I always have guys come in and ask, well, what do you think, is going to happen with the weather or, just whatever pricing or whatever it might be. And I go, well, I don't have my crystal ball with me. If you can tell me how that is all going to work, I mean, this is what I'm seeing, but things can move at any time. And we all know that in agriculture, but it's always kind of funny when the guys come in and rev me and ask, well, what do you think is going to happen? I'm like, that's $1 million question some days.
And that Farmer's Almanac book isn't always right.
Right, exactly.
So we know that March 27th is National Women in Agriculture Day. So if you're listening today, you know that today's the day. What does this recognition mean to you personally?
So for me, I'll see the farmers come in, the husbands, right? I'll see the husbands, but I don't always see the wives. And I know they're in the background, right? Helping, whether it's outside or just inside bookkeeping, whatever it might be. So they're always there. And I think it's just huge to be able to recognize the women behind some of those farmers. It's very important. They're there. They're the ones kind of keeping things together a lot of times.
Yep. We're the glue and the twine and the duct tape that holds everything all together and making sure that they're where they're supposed to be and on task. So, you've seen probably a lot of this change, the scene change over the years is women are taking on more of a role and they're not always just behind the scenes, but sometimes they're coming out and they're feeling more comfortable to be in those leadership positions. Are you seeing more of that shift in the industry in your area?
I am. I see it more on, I would say, the homestead side. I see some on the actual farming side, but a lot on the homesteading side, where they kind of wrangle their husbands into doing that versus the other way around. But I see the women anyway coming in here because they typically tend to the financial piece a lot of times. And they're the ones that kind of do the running, right? So if they're in the fields and they need something, they'll send her to town and pick up stuff. So it's always nice. And I make an effort to speak with them when they come in. A lot of times it's like, oh, okay, you're, blah, blah, blah's wife. That's awesome. It's so nice to meet you, because I get it. I was that one for the longest time when we had our children. I used to come in all the time. I came into this store, right, with my husband. But then when you have a couple of kids, you don't want to leave the house in the wintertime. No. You don't want to bundle them up,
Right.
So we know you're there and we appreciate you very much so. But yeah, we see them kind of a 50-50 split anymore with women coming in and men, which is awesome. I love to see it. It's great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, they're just as well right alongside their spouses, their husbands, making sure that the operation is running and doing a lot of the heavy lifting as well. So you wear a lot of hats, Erica. You're a business owner, a farm ranch wife, and a mom. What does a typical day look like for you?
Well, we got to get up and get the kids ready to get on the bus in the mornings. And when I get home, cook dinner or try to, I'm working here 5.5 days a week. So trying to maneuver that. My husband takes care of the day-to-day stuff for the most part. I make sure the kids do their minor chores outside that they need to tend to the chickens, things of that. But on Sundays, that's a typical day for Erica to go out and help. So like this last weekend, we went out and we worked a little over 100 head. So I was running the chute, giving all the vaccines, all of that, and he was pushing them up for me to take care of. So, I mean, every day is different. The only consistency I can say I have for the most part is coming here every day, right? So coming to work every day and being able to see people. And, I call it work and I don't really even think of it. I come to the office. I get to support the local farmers. And then I go home and see what's fallen apart today. Or, I'll get a phone call. Hey, don't forget, I need you to bring this feed home, because he doesn't have to run to the farm store anymore. I am the farm store. So, and some days, if I have, so we're about 23 miles from the store. So I have neighbors that will call. And so I'll throw feed in the back of my vehicle and I'll bring feed home with me for the local neighbors to pick up. So, again, it's just every day is different. Consistently, the kids are going to school and all of that. But other than that, what we do on a evening basis just depends on what happens. If the bulls need, hey, I'm going to have to go out and be, my good job of gatekeeping to make sure nobody gets out. So,
right. Because it never fails, especially with the bulls. They're curious.
Yes, when we have them in. Or, we do direct to consumer for, any of our meat. So some days we have to go in and get hogs loaded up. So we'll have to spend, when I get home, we'll have to go down and load up hogs. So it all depends on what's going on our schedule. And I have to make sure our calendar is set so that I know what's going on. Hey, don't forget to hook the trailer on. So we have to take stuff to the locker tomorrow so that I don't have to constantly remember. Sometimes I'm like, okay, did you make that locker appointment or did I make that locker appointment? And make sure to put it on the calendar.
Right.
I'm not sure what people did without the calendar before. So
I know
that's how we keep our lives
keep ourselves organized.
Otherwise, it can be really chaotic if we don't put something on the calendar.
Thank goodness for technology and those apps that help us out. Have you thought about having an app for like an Uber for all your deliveries that you're doing? They just punch it in and for your neighbors or
Yeah, right. So they call into the store, they put their order in, is what they do. And then within the store, we have, if guys are getting fencing supplies or whatever, we do free delivery within
perfect.
60 miles of the store. So, and we know it's tough for guys to get away because, we see it ourselves, right? So it's relatable for me. So if we can offer that service, because we also do bulk feed as well. And so if I can offer the service of not only bringing bulk feed, but, if you need some fencing supplies or a pallet of mineral, then by all means, let's get you taken care of. It seems like a not so big of a deal, but when you end up spending an hour of your day just running to do those things and not taking care of maybe something that's, broke down or whatever it might be, that kind of puts a bit of a hitch in the whole operation. And so we've tried to make it a little bit easier for people. And that's what I tell my neighbors all the time. If you need me to bring something home, I have no problem with doing that because I get it. Like it can be chaotic. And a lot of us have jobs in town, right? So we're not only farming, but we're also working in town. So I get it. My hours, I can only spread my hours of the store so far, because we even will have set outs for the farmers out back, if they need a couple bags of something, set it out back for them to come pick up because life gets chaotic. And so that's why I said, I don't have a consistent schedule other than here.
Other here. Yeah, that's your consistent
Friday, 8 to 5.
You're 8 to 5. But you have, you've made it work. You're working through those challenges to start taking over the business and finding that work-life balance and so forth. But what a great service to provide. You've been in customer service pretty much your whole life, working with your mom at the restaurant and so forth. And this is just that add-on to that. And giving that, I'm sure the egg producers just, so thankful that you're there and you're providing that service and doing that delivery where they could just, not have to worry about going to town, making an extra trip, and they could focus on something else and getting those other jobs done that they need to for the day. So have you seen, since you've taken on this position, some real challenges with, what's happening with the economy or input costs or supply chains? That volatility that's going up and down. What is that thing that keeps you up at night as a business owner?
I think it's more the aspect of how personal I take some of the price increases because I know how it impacts cash flow for me, just to think about how it impacts cash flow for the farmer as well. You have beef prices that are up, right? But when your input costs are going up as well, you're not really making as much as what it looks like, right? With the inflation. And I was trying to think the other day how high up some of this stuff. I've had some years where we've had multiple price increases from one company. That's big. So I would say it's nothing for some of this to be up over 30% plus in the last 5 years for us. And it hurts me when they do a price increase because I'm like, I have to be able to make some money as well, right? We have to keep the lights on. So I know that, I'm like, hey, if you're wanting to get this, if I still have something on hand, a lot of people don't do this, but I will, keep that price of that old stock and not raise that price to what the new price is until that old stock is depleted, just so people get the opportunity to take advantage of that. But I say, hey, this is going to go up. And they're, and I said, that's fine. I'm just telling you for when it comes. So that's hard for me because it's something that I can't control. And I have to remember that. And that's something I have to tell myself. Okay, you cannot control this. You're just kind of the middleman when it comes to some of this stuff. So that's why I'm like, you cannot keep yourself up about it. But it is tough. It is tough because I get it. And I don't want to spend any extra money than I have to. But at the same time, you have to ride the increase as well.
Right. Well, and I think that's the unique outlook that you take on this with your business, is you being an egg producer or farmer and rancher as well. So you can sympathize with your customers that come through your door, and you have an understanding, you know what they're going through and what this is going to do for their operation, but yet giving them every opportunity. It's like a warning label to say, hey guys, this is what we have. And helping them to understand too, where you come from with your business, that this isn't just something that you're doing just because you want to, really have a high run on something, but you're doing this because you want to make a difference, but give them every opportunity to be able to purchase and make it as economical.
Yeah,
for them.
Exactly. I'm not one that wants to knee-jerk reaction and jack all the prices up because I know something's going up. I want to give them the opportunity to get what I have. I might not have a lot of it on hand, but that's the last thing I'd want somebody to do to me. Yeah, so that's been interesting to see the pricing and how much it has gone up. And, people always joke with me. They're like, oh, you think it'll come down here soon? And I'm like, yeah, it never comes down as fast as it, and I said, I don't know if you'll see some of this stuff come down, honestly.
Right.
So,
right.
But they're willing to listen when I say, hey, just so you know, this is going to go up in price. And they're like, right. Okay.
Right. Well, and that's the appreciation for that customer service and having them repeat customers, because they know that what you're telling them is they can trust you and you're looking out for their best interest as egg producers.
Yeah, I don't want to be that selfish person. I guess what I'm trying to do is run a business that helps somebody else, right? So it's not all about me. I'm not planning on becoming a millionaire doing this. But I want to be able to see, and it's thrilling to me to see when people are successful in their operations. I want other people to be successful, and it's not a competition for me. I want everybody to be able to do what their goals are and be able to achieve them. That's huge. So if I can help them in that process, that's wonderful.
Yep, absolutely. So for young women who may want to get started in a business or take on more of a leadership role in their agriculture career, what advice would you give them?
Take advantage of any leadership type training that you can get. Leadership training is invaluable because it helps you build some courage a lot of times. I didn't think much of it when I would have to stand up and speak to, say, 50 plus farmers I had to go through the food safety piece when I was in manufacturing with the farmers and making sure they were cleaning out things properly, the sanitation piece. So if it wasn't for those leadership trainings and speaking, right? It's also part of that leadership training. Is how you speak, how you calm yourself, how you because it's all nerve-wracking, right? So it's never fun to stand up and speak, So being able to channel that and utilizing all of that training was big. And I think that's what gave me the confidence to be able to say, hey, I want to buy this farm store.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Very good. Very good advice. If you could go back and speaking of advice, if you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice when you started this journey, what would it be?
It's not a race. Just in general, like my career, it was started from college, right? So I took college courses in high school and I started with college courses the day after I graduated. So I got my bachelor's in 2.5 years.
Okay.
And so I was driven, there's nothing wrong with it, but in the aspect of it, I didn't take the time to enjoy things that you would normally in college or just in your youth. I've always been very goal driven. Just taking a moment and just remember, you don't get to go through this again. Right. So some of these things are only going to happen once. And I think I see that more now having children and watching them grow so fast. And then thinking as a young adult myself, why was I in such a hurry? But it wouldn't have brought me here to today either. So it's always one of those things when you think back, would you change something? I don't think I would change the timeline. Just take 5 minutes and actually, enjoy yourself, right?
Yeah.
Not saying, no, you should go to college for 5 years. No.
Right. No, that's great advice, because I think this is such a fast-paced world, and we find ourselves just being impatient, and we got to hurry. And just knowing that sometimes it's okay to sit back and take a deep breath and just slow down and just enjoy it and appreciate for, what we have around us. I'm not saying that we don't appreciate, but, sometimes you just take those things for granted because you're so busy that you don't have the time to enjoy it.
Right? And you forget about all the things you've accomplished, right? Mm-hmm. So you're on the go constantly. And you're like, oh, yeah. I did get that done. And I did, this did happen. And look how far we've come. And, just have to take a moment. And I think I do it more now. I'll sit down and just write it down, because it's like, okay, you kind of that count your blessings, and just look through, hey, we have accomplished something, because it can get very daunting, especially owning your own business and having a farm and a couple of kids all intermingled in there. You're like, I feel like I'm getting nothing done, right? So you have to kind of sit down and reflect.
Right. Now that's great advice. Great advice for those young women that are out there. Anybody listening today, for our listeners, just sit back and just relax a little bit and write it down. So you can come back to it later and reflect on it and say, yeah, this is really what I did. And you look around yourself and say, I am doing something. I am getting things done. Sometimes it just doesn't feel like it, like you're just running in place. But yeah. Well, if you were to think about the future of your business and your family, what kind of legacy do you hope that you're building for the future?
So my husband and I we discuss this often, is that we're doing it for the next generation, is kind of our mentality. So we want to make sure that we're being good stewards of whatever it is, whether we're talking the business or our farm, and making sure that we're making the right decisions that can help the future, not just our future, if that makes sense. So we want to make sure that our children are set up for success, not necessarily giving them everything, right? But we want to make sure that they understand what they're coming from, what's going on, and why we do what we do. Because I feel like the knowledge transfer piece, there's a little disconnect amongst generations. And so we're trying to change that in the aspect of how we are doing things with our own children, to set that up so that if something does happen to us, that they understand why we are doing what we're doing.
Yeah. No, I think it's so important to communicate that to our families or children, because if we don't, they're never going to know, and they won't have those stories and the history behind the why we are doing what we're doing and why we have built what we have built for our family legacies.
Yeah, I think it's important. It can't just be the because that's what we've always done, Yeah. So we want to make sure and kind of squash that and say the actual reason why we're doing what we're doing.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Break the cycle. Be the cycle breakers, because there's so many of those things that have happened in the past. That's the way we've always done it. Well, we can't keep having that mentality. We need to be the cycle breakers and change that. So. Well, Erica, I really appreciate you sharing your story today. Stories like yours matter because they help people see what's possible. And one thing I've learned after years of working with farm families is that agriculture has always been built on strong women, women who manage the business, raise families, and support their communities, and often carry a lot more responsibility than they ever get credit for. Women in Agriculture Day is really about recognizing that those contributions and celebrating the leadership women bring to the industry. Thank you again, Erica, for joining us today and for the work you're doing in agriculture. And for those listening, if today's conversation resonated with you, take a moment and recognize the women in your life who help keep your farm, ranch, or ag business moving forward. Because at the end of the day, legacy isn't just about land or assets. It's about the people who step up to do the work and carry the story forward. Until next time, we'll see you between the ditches.
Thanks for listening to the Pathfinder Legacy Podcast, where your future is our focus. Be sure to subscribe, follow us on social media, and visit us at pathfinderlegacy.com to start building your transition plan today.